If you've ever looked at your adult child and thought, why don't they call as much? Or why do they get tense when I try to help? Or even, what did I say wrong this time? You're not alone. Most parents don't realize that what they consider help, their adult children sometimes experience as control. And here's the difficult part. It's usually unintentional. It comes from love. It comes from wanting the best. It comes from years of being the protector, the fixer, the one who always had to hold everything together. But if we don't recognize the subtle signs of control, we risk pushing away the very people we're trying to support. Today's video reveals 5 signs you might be trying to stay in control without realizing it, and how to shift from pressure to connection. And we'll explore it through one powerful story. A father named Richard who meant well, but didn't see the impact of his help until it was almost too late. Before we begin, I want you to know this isn't about blame. It's about awareness, healing, and building better relationships in the years ahead. I've spent years studying communication patterns in families, listening to adult children, and speaking with parents navigating this new chapter of life. One thing is always clear. Most conflicts aren't caused by bad intentions, but by unspoken needs and old habits that didn't grow with time. So today, let's walk through this with honesty, kindness, and an open heart. Richard was 72 when he finally saw it. All his life, he'd been the kind of man who believed a good father leads from the front. He worked 2 jobs when his kids were young. He fixed things. He solved problems. He gave advice like oxygen, constant, unfiltered, and always with the belief that he was saving his kids from pain. His son, Michael, now 42, was a quiet, thoughtful man. Good job, steady income, kind heart. But every time he visited, Richard noticed something unsettling. Michael would stiffen, answer cautiously, and leave sooner than expected. One afternoon after Sunday lunch, Michael stood up to leave and said, "Dad, I just need some space, okay?" No anger, no explanation, just exhaustion. And then he walked out the door. Richard stood in the kitchen, 72 years old, holding the same dish towel he'd held for 20 years, suddenly realizing he had no idea how to be the father his son needed now. That night, he sat at the table, replaying the last few months. He remembered every moment he thought he was being helpful, telling Michael how he should manage his money, questioning his parenting decisions, critiquing the way he handled a minor car issue, and always offering solutions instead of listening. In his mind, he had been protecting his son. In his son's mind, Richard had been controlling. And that's when Richard, for the first time, began to ask himself, what if I've been trying to stay in control without even realizing it? Let's break this down using Clay's transformation model. 1. Situation. A parent still operates from their old role, the fixer, the leader, the authority, long after their child has grown up. 2. Desire. The parent wants closeness, influence, and emotional connection. 3. Conflict. But the child wants to be seen as an independent adult, not a project to be corrected. This creates emotional friction, not dramatic fights, but slow, quiet distancing. 4. Change. Awareness, recognition, a shift from leading to listening. from instructing to respecting. 5. Result: a relationship that feels safe, equal, warm, and emotionally open instead of guarded and distant. 5 signs you're trying to stay in control without realizing it. Sign 1. You often offer corrections instead of curiosity. When your adult child tells you about their life, their job, their spouse, their parenting, do you find yourself jumping in with, "Here's what you should do," or "I'll tell you what the problem is," or "You're doing it the hard way"? Richard used to interrupt Michael mid-sentence, not out of disrespect, but out of habit. He genuinely believed he knew better. But every correction, even tiny ones, told Michael, "I don't trust your judgment. I know how to run your life better than you." According to research from UC Berkeley, adults shut down emotionally when they feel evaluated rather than understood. Curiosity, phrases like, "What do you think you'll do?" or "How are you feeling about that?" opens the door to connection. Corrections close it. Sign 2. You ask questions that feel like inspections. There's a difference between, "How are the kids doing?" and "Are you sure you're raising them right?" Between, "How's work going?" and "Did you talk to your boss yet? Why not?" Richard didn't realize that most of his questions had a hidden tone. Are you doing enough? Are you making the right choices? Are you living the way I think you should? According to Johns Hopkins psychologists, adult children tend to withdraw when conversations feel like performance reviews. Intent matters, but tone shapes the impact. Sign 3. You feel anxious when they make choices you wouldn't make. Control often disguises itself as fear. Richard worried constantly. What if Michael made a mistake? What if he struggled financially? What if he didn't discipline his kids properly? That anxiety made him overstep, offer too much, push too hard. But here's the truth. Your child doesn't need you to prevent every mistake. They need you to trust them to handle life on their own. Research from Harvard's Adult Development Study shows that autonomy, the ability to make decisions without interference, is a core ingredient for strong, resilient family bonds. When you let go of control, you give them dignity, and dignity builds connection. Sign 4. You advise when you're actually trying to influence outcomes. Advice isn't wrong, but hidden expectations are. Richard often said, "I'm just trying to help," but the truth was he wanted things done a certain way, his way. If your advice comes with disappointment when they don't follow it, if you give advice to steer their decisions, if you feel uneasy unless they choose what you prefer, that's no longer advice. That's control dressed as guidance. Adult children feel this immediately. One study from Ohio State University found that unsolicited advice triggers the same stress response in the brain as criticism. Sign 5. You struggle to let them live a life different from the one you imagined. This is the hardest one. Every parent deep down carries a quiet dream for their child. How they'll live, who they'll marry, what career they'll choose, what values they'll hold. But adult children aren't copies, they're individuals. Richard kept trying to guide Michael toward the life he understood, the structure he believed fit best. But Michael's life was unfolding in a direction Richard had never imagined. And Richard's resistance, subtle but constant, made his son feel unseen. Letting go isn't giving up. It's choosing love over control, presence over pressure, respect over fear. Let's ground this in evidence, because this isn't just emotional, it's measurable. 1.
Adult children need psychological autonomy. Research from the University of Rochester shows that adults thrive when parents support autonomy rather than direct behavior. 2. Emotional safety matters more than advice. Harvard's research on long-term relationship satisfaction reveals that emotional safety, not instruction, predicts closeness. 3. Unsolicited advice increases stress. Ohio State University's study found that even well-meaning advice activates stress regions in the brain. 4. Listening increases connection. A study in the journal Family Process shows that reflective listening is one of the strongest predictors of healthy parent-adult-child relationships. Richard never knew these things. Most parents don't, and that's okay. What matters is learning now. Here's how you can gently shift from control to connection, starting today. 1. Replace advice with presence. Say, "I'm here if you ever want my thoughts." Then let them ask. 2. Use curiosity instead of correction. Try, "Tell me more," or "How are you feeling about it?" 3. State your intention clearly. "I just want to understand you better," or "I'm trying to listen more than I speak." 4. Let them make decisions without your approval. If they choose something you wouldn't, grace is more powerful than opinion. 5. Celebrate who they are becoming, not who you hope they'd be, not who you fear they might become, but who they are right now. These shifts feel small, but for an adult child, they feel like oxygen. Let's return to Richard. After months of reflection, he sat down with Michael and said something he had never said before. "Son, I realize I've spent your whole life trying to steer you instead of really seeing you. I'm learning. I want to understand you, not manage you." Michael didn't say much at first. He just nodded, slowly, with tears he tried to hide. But that moment became a turning point, because the second you stop trying to control, your child finally has space to come closer. Remember this: control builds walls, understanding builds bridges, and it's never too late to choose the bridge. If today's message touched you, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next chapter of your journey toward deeper, healthier family connections.